Hi everyone, Jessica here from Paper Ink Stamp and welcome back to my channel. So for today's card we're going to be using the Simon Says Stamp Floral Garden stamp set. So this is a set that I picked up recently. I showed you in a recent haul video, and we're going to be creating two slimline cards with this stamped image because it is really large. And I've seen lots of examples because this has been out for a month or two now, and people have done lots of different kinds of things with this stamp and usually creating then two slimline cards because it's just the right size. So I'm going to be using a couple of new products that again I showed you in that recent haul video. So apart from this stamp, I'm going to be using the Simon Says Stamp embossing ink that you can see here, and then I'm going to be using the white detailed embossing powder as well. So what we're going to be doing is heat embossing this with some white embossing powder, like I said, and then I'm going to use some distress inks to colour this in. So this isn't really no line watercolouring, because you're going to be able to see that white embossing powder, but it's just going to highlight sort of the colours that we use for the flowers and the leaves. So the paper that I am using, I've picked up some proper watercolour card. So I picked this up from Hobbycraft. This is the Langdon. This is a 30 GSM hot pressed watercolour. So this is, because it's hot pressed, it's smooth. Cold pressed means it's got that watercolour texture. All I've got is the Crafter's Companion watercolour cardstock, and I think it's okay. It does seem to get quite bitty, but this stayed perfect. So I was really happy with this cardstock, so I'm definitely going to be using this in the future. And it just goes to show, if you have kind of the right tools or the right sort of equipment, it means then you're going to get better results. And I did get much better results using this watercolour cardstock than I have done using my Crafter's Companion. So all I've done is used my stamping platform, and I stamped this image a couple of times just to make sure that I got a really nice coverage, but using that new Simon Says Stamp embossing ink, because it's really juicy, you know, it does get really fabulous results. So I did then coat that, like I said, with that Simon Says Stamp white detailed embossing powder, and then I just let that dry with my heat tool. So now, like I said, I'm going to paint this with some distress inks. So I've got my inks off to the side, and you can see that I'm just using my glass mat just to smush those inks and to be able to pick them up with a brush. So I am trying to have a go more sort of seriously using these inks as watercolours, trying to get better. Obviously you need to practice to really be able to improve on a skill. So all I'm doing is I've got a clean brush which has just got water, so I then pop some water on the cardstock to begin with. I've then got another brush which I'm going to be using to pick up that colour, but you can see that I'm just laying down that bit of water first. I'm trying to concentrate my colour on one section, and I'm trying to sort of blend that out with the water. So you can see I've put a little bit in, and then I'm just fading that out then with the water. I am happy with the results that I got, but this is definitely something that takes a little bit of practice, and you really just have to keep going. So I've sped this up just to sort of get through it a little bit quicker, because this did take me a little while to colour in. So I'm going to play some music, and then once we've got this panel finished, then I'm going to come back and we'll start with the card. So this is nearly finished now, and what I did do is add some splatters as well, just using some of that leftover ink that was on my mat, and I put some Cosmic Shimmer as well, just to add a little bit of sparkle. And now we've got this finished and it's all completely dry, we can go ahead and get started actually creating our cards. So I'm going to take 2 Slimline dies, so we've got this regular die here, and this is going to create 2 Slimline card panels absolutely beautifully, so you can see them here. And then I've also cut a mat as well, and this has got a scalloped edge. The cardstock I used for that was the Rose Pink by Craft Perfect by Tonic Studios, and you can see how this is going to sit together, and that's really just going to help pick out that kind of red tone that we've got in there for some of those flowers. So I want this to lie flat because this is our watercolour card, because I heat embossed on this and then obviously just let it dry after colouring this in. So I want to make sure that this lies flat and then it doesn't start warping or anything. So I'm going to use my purple tape runner to attach this to my mat. So once I've got all the adhesive, I can go ahead and pop this one down, and it's going to give us a really beautiful outline for that rose pink colour. Again, I think that just goes really perfectly, kind of gives it a little bit of a lift, because it is quite muted where we've got that white embossing powder. I think it is quite a muted panel. It's nice to have just a pop of colour. So now I'm just popping on this second card panel as well, like I said, because we're making 2, we might as well. We've got this stuff out, and like I said, this stamp is so big that you can create these 2 panels. So next thing we're going to do is work on the sentiment. So again, this is another new die by Simon Says Stamp. This is the Painted Hello, and this is a really beautiful size. I'm really happy that I picked these dies up. So I've cut 2 of these hellos out of the olive green, and then I've actually cut 4 of them out of just some white cardstock, and we're going to be layering them up. So this is a really great way of having dimension on your sentiment without having to worry about fiddly little foam pads that potentially you might see. This is just a really easy way to kind of stack them and build them up and give it a little bit of extra dimension. So you can use liquid glue for this, lots of people do that. I'm just using my Crafter's Companion Dotty Tape pen here, and you've seen that I popped some of that tape on top of one of the hellos. I've stuck that second one on, and now I'm going to add this olive green hello onto the top of it. And this is just going to create a nice little bit of white shadow as well behind this olive green. You could offset this and give it a little bit of a shadow dye, but I've popped it directly on top of it. But you can see even here how it's going to look. Like I said, you've got just that really lovely sort of white sides to it. It just really helps stand out a little bit more, I think. So again, and these are a really, really great size for any project. So then I can go and get started on the second one. So again, if you've got your supplies out, why not make a second card? You don't necessarily have to make them the exact same way, but if you've got everything out, not every card has to be completely different. You can use the same design, just different colours or different stamp set. But again, while you've got your tools out, you've got everything out, why not create a second card? So now I've got that one stacked up, we can go ahead and just add then our olive green hello back onto the top of this. And you can see just how easy this is as well, using this tape runner. If I was using glue, I'd have it all squirting out the sides. I think I would get it into a little bit of a mess, but I found using this dotty tape pen, for me personally, is the best way to get this to stick together. And it's a really strong adhesive as well. So before we actually stick anything down to our card base, I'm going to stamp this Floral Gardens image on the inside. So I'm popping this into my stamping platform. So it took me a minute just to work out where I wanted to sit the paper, because obviously the card is quite big and this stamp set is really big as well. I've ended up having to kind of float it in the middle of my stamping platform, but I'm using my magnets, but I'm also using a bit of washi tape just to help this sit. I definitely want this to stay in the same place because I will end up stamping it again. So the ink that I'm using for this, I'm just using some Bundled Sage Distress ink. So this is a really beautiful kind of deeper green colour, and this is just gonna help that image stand out on the inside of the card, but it's not going to be so dark where you won't be able to kind of write over it. And then the inside of the card is going to match the outside really beautifully. What I really love is just how lovely this stamp is. You could literally just stamp it as I am here and add a sentiment, and it really doesn't have to be any more than that. So you can see them here, I've done both, and I just think they look so lovely. Like I said, that could just be your card front if you wanted to pop a sentiment on, maybe a nice colourful sentiment, and I think that would work really well. And I think that's the sign of a really great stamp set. So now we can get started actually assembling our card. So we've got our card bases cut, and now I'm going to pop some of the Simon Says Stamp Big Mama foam tape on the back of our panel. So you know how much I love this foam tape. I think it's just absolutely brilliant. Being on a roll is so much easier. I can make sure that I get the coverage that I need. I always find with the foam pads that I was maybe just a little bit stingy with it, and then I'd have some places where it would kind of droop, where it just wasn't supported, and that's really not what you want if you're going to use some foam pads. You definitely want it to be supported, you want it to hold up with itself, and that's what I love about this. Because it's on the roll, I can use as much as I need, and I am then actually covering the panel with this foam tape. So now we've got our foam tape on the back, we can go ahead and stick this to our card base, and we've got a really lovely white border around from that card base. We've then got that lovely scalloped edge in that rose pink cardstock, and then we've got our panel. So that scalloped edge I think just adds an extra level of detail then to the card. It's just something a little bit different. I also then stuck down that second panel as well, and now we can pop our sentiment on. So again, I'm just using some more of that Crafter's Companion Dotty tape pen just to attach my hellos, and then I'm putting this towards the bottom. I do have a bit of a white gap at the top, and I was debating whether I wanted to pop it up there, but actually I think it stands out really nicely just in this bottom section here. And then the last thing I'm going to do for this card is just add a little bit of embellishment. So I'm going to use some Nuvo crystal drops. So the colours I'm going to use is bottle green, ivory seashell and duck egg blue. I added quite a few of these, just sort of dotted around that hello, and then just sort of slightly up the card a little bit more. And this is just going to add, like I said, some really final embellishments. And that will then be our card finish. So I really love how these come out. Like I said before, I have seen a lot of projects using this stamp set, this Floral Garden, and it's always nice to kind of see what everyone else can create, but also to come up with something yourself. And I think it's really nice to try and push yourselves a little bit more, try something new. So for me, it's this colouring with the distress inks and doing a little bit of this no line watercolouring. So I love watching people create projects like that, and I always wanted to be able to do it, but really it's just practice is the only way that I'm going to learn to do it. So I'm definitely going to be seeing a lot more of that, and I have received now the antique linen distress ink as well through the post, so we'll be doing a video, like I said, trying to use that for the no line watercolouring, seeing how we get on with that. But again, it's just practice makes perfect, really. So that is it for this card. So if you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. If you aren't a current subscriber to my channel, then please consider hitting that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future uploads. On screen now is a couple of other videos that I think you might like if you want to check those out. But that's it for this video. Thanks very much for watching and happy crafting.